Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. My name is Sarah Elliot. I am co-creator of Rockstar Connect, and this is a lovely conversation with all of my favorite people here about something innovative and interesting. So we're going to have a really great conversation today, led by the infamous, the wonderful Mr. Jay Izso. So I'm going to let him take it away, and I appreciate you all joining us.
Thank you, Sarah. It's great to see Sarah Elliott. And we, of course, we're wishing Steve and David Elliott good health, well wishes, and our prayers as he's back at home and feeling better. And so we just collectively just want to come together and just give him a lot of great love, right, as we cheer him on and getting him feel better. So I am honored to be here with some of the greatest, brightest, most intelligent, brilliant minds of business and entrepreneurship gather around here. They're beautiful people besides all that as well. And so we always have a question every week. We have the question of the week. And what is the question of the week? So Sarah and I, as I was working out in my gym, in my garage, she calls me on the phone. She says, Jay, what do you think about? And I was like, I like that. What if we do it this way? And so here's the question. So I want you to think about it this way. When you're in crisis, what is your go-to? Meaning, what is the system that you handle crisis? What is your go-to when it comes to handling crisis? Whether it's a relationship, whether that's business, whatever it may be, when you're in crisis, what is your go-to to handle that crisis? Now, I'm going to give you some time to think about it. I'll share mine up front so that you got some time to think about it, okay? Because I know nobody out here was going, oh my gosh. So when I'm in crisis, it doesn't matter what the crisis is, right? It doesn't matter if it's business or I'm in a relationship or if it's a relationship crisis or whatever it might be. I have a system. My first system is pray. Very first thing out of my mouth is, and I really am specific about what I pray for. I literally pray. I go, God, you're going to have to give me some wisdom here because I don't have enough knowledge to know what to do. Right. So that's the very first thing. And then I also pray for an open mind, right, when it comes to the crisis, because a lot of times we can be biased. And so I want to eliminate that bias. So that's the first thing I do. The second thing I do is then when I'm in the crisis is make sure I've listened to all the details. Be very, very clear about I'll make sure I heard it all. Don't think, don't talk, just listen, just absorb all the information. That's my second step. My third step after that is assume positive intent. A lot of times when we're in crisis, what happens is we assume the worst, right? I like to try to assume positive intent is what I like to try to assume. They're assuming that people are really meaning well, and that this crisis is maybe not as negative as I really believe it to be, right? And then my fourth process after that is look for opportunity, right? What opportunities do I have in here that I may not be looking for, right? And then I have a fifth thing, and that is there's no problem. I say this to myself, there's no problem that creativity can't solve. And I try to find a creative solution. And those are my five, right? When it comes to crisis, that's my go-to. That's my process in terms of solving a crisis problem. And generally, it works out most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't, right? I have to admit that sometimes it doesn't. But I think there always has to be that positive edge for me, and that's how I roll with it. All right, so let's get started. I think we should start because with Lisa Grunden, because Lisa, tell us what you do, and tell us when you're in crisis, what do you do?
No longer what I used to do. I love this question. It's a great question because these happen. And I thought about it. And you know what? The very first thing that I do is remember to breathe. That's also very equivalent to prayer because I'm breathing. I'm making sure that the state in my body is clear, that there's movement, that it's not stuck, that I'm not that sort of thing, that the breath comes flows slow and easily. And as the mind clears, and I find myself asking this question in my head, which actually I asked this question out loud as well, which is basically, what is it I'm not getting here? Because lots of times when there's a big crisis like that, there's something, and something not getting here is number one, listening to all the things that are around. Well, what is it that's really going on here? This is something I really play with my husband now, though, especially for the last 2 years, we've been working together out of our homes when we used to both go to offices. And then it's that it's so easy for me to shift perspectives. It's so easy for me to look around the room and see what there is, especially when I no longer feel like I have to defend my stance with my last dying breath. And it's so much more fun when that's what happens, when it's like, because I never phrase it the way you did. However, I'm swiping that, Jay. There is no problem that creativity can't solve. And I'm going to add one special component to it. And you guys have always said this, addressed this, that you showing up uniquely you, me showing up uniquely me, not how someone else said we had to fix problems, not how someone else said that these are the strategies and all that kind of stuff, that you showing up as you, me showing up as me allows them to show up as you. And it's like, okay, so what's really going on here? I love that there's that opening, there's that connection when you remove that and there's room for this.
Yeah.
That's my process.
Yeah, I love that. I love that process. Sorry, I was going around here and my computer said it was almost out of battery. I'm like, it's plugged in. I couldn't understand. So I apologize for that. Well, I think though, the whole idea, I think sometimes especially for you, because you have such a great mindset anyway, mindset is your first key anyway, when it comes to that. And I don't know what you were like before, but
imagine a chicken running around with her head cut off all the time. All the time.
Right. And I'm just gonna ask this question to you specifically. What changed that for you?
You know what? One day I just woke up and I just got sick and tired of everybody telling me what was wrong with me. I just got, I have a heart that is just open. I have endless amounts of creativity. And one day I just decided, no effing way anymore. I am sick and tired of it. You guys all go over here.
Right.
And because willpower is just you trying to do it someone else's way when it's really easy to show up as you. And that's when people genuinely like you too.
I love that. That's beautiful. Clint Webb, you were on earlier, and by the way, love the dome. I just love it. It looks like you're freshly shaven. So Clint, I love you, brother. I really do. So tell us what you do, and then answer the question again is, when in crisis, what is your go-to process?
Well, Jay, I'll hire you as a hype man all day, bro. So, hey everybody, Clint Webb, I'm the head of business development at Solido. So what we do here is we're a local technology company, and we offer fiber, a dedicated fiber to business, and hosted voice solutions, IT services, data center storage, whatever you need from desktop to cloud. So that's a little bit about the company. To answer the question, a couple of things, man. I really like what you guys were saying, and Lisa, you're always a breath of fresh air with stuff like this. So I'm gonna try to find the humor in the situation always, and try to see what I can do to positively impact the situation, whether it's being positive, whether it's trying to find the funny, because that's one of my defense mechanisms anyway, right? Is humor. And so I always try to do what I can to do that, and have patience. Take a few deep breaths, like Lisa was saying. If you connect to your breath, I always pushed back against meditation, and even yoga, on a lesser level, and finding the breath and finding what it does to you to actually sit in your own silence. It's life-changing. So that's definitely whatever I would try to do. Try to find, try to be patient, trying to find the funny, and how can I positively impact the situation.
I love that. I think, we can diffuse a lot of crisis with humor.
Mm-hmm.
It's a true story. My wife was really on the attack one time, and she was really coming at me really hard. And there's that immediate desire to want to get defensive, especially with your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided she was just really, I can't even remember what it was about, but she was not happy with me. So I'm sitting across the kitchen counter from her, and I said to her, baby, when the doctor removed your heart, what did he do with it? And she looked at me, and she wanted so badly, and she turned away. She tried and walked into the other room, walked into the laundry room, and just burst out laughing, right? Because
I mean, what are you going to do, Jay?
it completely, completely, right. But humor is a powerful tool.
Yeah.
It's
so
such a powerful tool.
Like the thing that I would challenge everybody with today is somebody that you come across today, and you will come across somebody today if you haven't already, that is in a bad mood or having a really crap day. Try to make them laugh in any way possible. It doesn't matter if it's making fun of yourself, if it's making fun of them, if that's what they're into, but just try to make somebody laugh today. It'll take their day, to another level. So it's definitely important to me. I try to do that at least once a day with somebody that's having a bad day.
Yeah, I love that. I agree with that. That's a philosophy I abide by, right? My day is not your problem.
Well, there's a quote from Almost Famous, the movie, if nobody's ever seen that. If you haven't, gotta see Almost Famous. Jason Lee is the head singer of Stillwater. So it's the band in Almost Famous. And he's being interviewed by the guy from the Rolling Stones. And the guy asked him what he does when the crowd's, when he sees somebody in the crowd that's not into it. So back to the situation of somebody that's having a bad day. He said, I look for that one person that's not getting off, and I get them off. And that's a great quote, and I try to do that all the time. So
that's a great quote.
Yeah.
Great quote, Clint. All right, let's move along. By the way, two great things. By the way, make sure Lisa and Clint and everybody that we go to, put your stuff in the chat box so that people can contact you, your LinkedIn profile, whatever your contact information, so that people can get a hold of you in case they would like to tap your brain for more of your awesome information. Let's go to Damon King. Damon, hope you're doing well there in Oklahoma. And the question, when you're in crisis, what is your go-to process?
I like this question because I think it's in crisis that we really see what we're made of. And, I know a lot of people who like to watch those survivalist shows, like Naked and Afraid. And you can tell the person who would never make it because the first thing is, oh, yeah, I could survive. I know exactly what to do. I would eat those things, those bugs right there. Yeah, those are the people that would crap all over themselves on day 2 and be ready to go home. So you gotta, it's a great time. So what do? Well, first, I think it's important to resist the urge to respond immediately. When there's a crisis, you mentioned it a moment ago, you could have gotten defensive really quickly, and that usually makes things a lot worse. So if you can resist the urge to respond immediately, whether it's to a person, a situation, take some time to sit and think, well, man, that sucks. And you can even have your little 5-minute pity party for yourself. It's okay. But understand that if you respond in emotion, emotional people, well, we're all emotional. When you're using your emotions, you're more easily manipulated and susceptible to other people. So I try to do that first. I also try to remind myself that most crises are not as bad as you probably think that they are, but I still try to imagine, okay, what's the worst case scenario here? What if this completely blows up on me? I want to know what my boundaries are. There's absolute total resolution and everything works out in my favor, and there's this entire thing blows up in my face. What's the worst that could happen? Because chances are that's still not as bad as in your mind what you think is the worst to happen. I'll take some time to make a phone call to somebody that I trust. You want to call somebody that thinks you're fantastic, that thinks you're awesome and sings your praises, okay? I'm always reminded of Abraham Lincoln. Apparently, he heard a lot about terrible things about himself when he was president. We revere him today. A lot of people do. He was not revered in his time by a lot of people. And he would keep cutouts of complimentary newspaper articles about himself. And the theory is that he would pull those out and remind himself that there were people that actually liked him. So make a phone call to someone that likes you and that you trust. I try to gather as much information as possible. Okay, if I recently had this, I had a client who, I'll be honest, they transferred their money away from our firm. There were some things they were not happy about. It happens. They transferred them away, and they didn't understand why we had made the recommendations that we did. I could have gotten very defensive, but instead, I pulled out all the information. I take great notes, and I laid out my entire case. This is why we did this, and understand this person's just trying to get answers, and they're protecting their mom, just like I'd try to protect my mom. And they want to make sure that I'm not some rotten crook who's trying to steal their mom's money. Totally get it. So I got all the information together. I also remind myself any problem, and I hope this doesn't sound flippant, but any problem that can be solved with money is not really a problem. I understand if you don't have a lot of money, and you might look at me and say, yeah, you're an asshole for saying that, Damon. What I mean by that is, if money can solve a problem, it may be difficult to find the money to get it, but you can find money. So any money problem that can be solved by money is not really as big a problem. And then finally, just stay humble and stay calm. Because again, when you're using your emotions, it's easy to lose control and get manipulated. And people respond to humility. You know, you mentioned make fun of yourself. I think Clint said, make a joke, make fun of yourself, be self-deprecating. You know, swallow your pride a little bit. It's okay. The short-term injury to your pride is going to be ever so much better than any long-term damage you might do to a relationship that you could salvage. So that's how I deal with crisis.
I love that. And you know, Damon, I'm going to ask you to turn your microphone back on because people should know what you do and where you're at. Damon, can you hear me?
Say that again now.
I love that. No, you didn't tell people what you do and where you're at and how they get a hold of you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. I'm a certified financial planner with Chapelwood Financial Services in Edmond, Oklahoma, which is just north of Oklahoma City. And I'm a wealth management advisor. I help manage investments, but we help with estate plans, tax efficiency, college planning, helping you to find a house. We do a lot of real estate stuff. So anything our clients need, that's what we do. We tend to work with people who have extremely high net worth and their families. So that's who we are and what we do.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Damon. I'm going to go over to the lovely, the talented Jenny Mitchelly. By the way, Jenny, we need to reschedule because I really want to get on the show because I know that I would be boring to have on your show, but I would love to at least, you know, have so you could have at least one boring guest on your show.
We have like a list of like the most boring guests, and so those go in one list
And I'm
that like we
a
may or may not
competitor.
publish.
Yeah, I'm a competitor though. So if you've got that list, I can go more boring. If you want more boring, I can do that.
Looking forward to it.
So Jenny, the question is, in crisis, what is your go-to process? Tell people what you do, who you are, and then tell them what's your process to handle crisis.
Yeah. So I'm Jenny Mitchelly. I am a content marketer and brand and marketing photographer, based in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, but I do travel. We provide all kinds of digital solutions for your marketing needs. But before I was this marketer and photographer, I was a social worker for 20 years. And I worked in acute care psychiatric facilities and emergency rooms and spent my days in hospitals dealing with crisis situations. So, how apropos is this question? Let's see. No, I think that, I was actually a trainer in the prevention and management of crisis situations for the behavioral health units. So, I think that there's a level of skill that is required. You have to learn empathy, and you have to learn, to learn your own emotional intelligence.
So having awareness of, are you, and looking at, are you able and capable of handling a crisis in the moment, by going through the first, like, we're talking like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Are you hungry? Are you tired? Are you burnt out? Is there some other stressor that's causing you to feel like it's a crisis? Because it may not be a crisis, right? It could be a crisis of your own making just because of one of those other things. Is there some emotional state that you're in, that would, lead you to reacting as though it's a crisis? And really just treating yourself with grace and compassion and showing empathy to the other person in the room. Now, for me personally, I diffuse everything with humor. I deflect everything with humor. And it was funny because I didn't know I was funny until people started telling me that I was funny, right? Like, it was one of those things that I was like, I thought, I didn't like it. Anyway, and now, that's one of the things that I hear all the time is like, but you're so funny. And I'm like, if I knew I could have had a career in comedy, like, this is a whole nother, like, right. But, I think that having the ability to, self-deprecating humor has a place, right? There's a difference between self-deprecating humor and getting down on yourself and using it as a tool to connect with other people. Because I think at the core of everything when I deal with a crisis, it's connection. How can I connect with that other person? If it's my 6-year-old who's screaming, for whatever reason, like, we know the cues, right? We know how they sound when they're hangry. We know how, with the exception of, like, when we had to give her COVID swabs, because we also had COVID a couple weeks ago. And we had to swab the kids, and I literally had to sit on her. Like, that was a crisis moment for her, and her mommy was sitting on her to swab her nose. Like, real, like, I have to give them reasons to have therapy later in life, right? So, there are things that you can learn about yourself and about the people that you're having these interactions with, and how you resolve them is a reflection on you as well as a reflection on what you've learned. And so if you can learn more about yourself, if you can learn more about, your level of emotional intelligence and treat others with empathy, I think that, it becomes a lot easier to diffuse that crisis. And I also go straight into action. Like, that's my fun zone, is in a crisis.
That's good stuff. Awareness, and really, I think the other thing I pulled out of there is that I really identify the problem, right? I mean, I worked as a clinical psychologist too in Medical Lake, Washington, and I worked in heinous crimes. So these were people who were sent to the hospital who had been already
incarcerated.
Yeah, right. They were, well, or they were in jail and told you were insane, right? Because that is a legal term. That's not a psychological term.
Correct.
And so I worked with the murderers, rapists, and those type of folks. That's a crisis when they come in, right? That's great. But you know what? I got to tell you, having been away from that world and starting your own business, and as we can all relate, we have crises at times, and it's a different. And I love awareness, and I really identify the problem. I really like those, because those two things remind me of going back to that clinical situation really very much.
Right. And that clinical situation also taught you that what you define as a crisis is not what somebody else defines as a crisis. So you have to recognize if somebody's coming to you in crisis, like, it's not about you.
Right. Right. Yeah. It also helped me realize the definition of normal and abnormal, because normal is defined as what the general population is.
Yeah.
And so the truth of the matter is, when I'm in the hospital, I'm actually the abnormal one. Because they're normal.
Yep.
And that's a whole different twist. That's for another show. Let's move on to I just love this guy. I really, really do. I love the silver hair. I love the look. I love the glasses. It just exudes, just confidence and just self-esteem. His name is Mark Sher. Mark, tell us what you do. And when it comes to crisis, what is your go-to system?
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here at the 3 Martini lunch. Safe Harbor Financial Group is our company, and the non-technical layman's explanation is we show small businesses how to self-finance and individuals how to get out of debt, typically in 9 years or less, without spending any more than they're currently spending, including their mortgage, student loans, and consumer credit. We don't settle debt, restructure it, we eliminate it. I've been listening to all the great answers. And I mean, Clint, I love making people laugh at me, getting them to laugh. There's just so many good answers. Damon, what you said was very salient. Jenny, I like what you said. The only thing that I would add, really, is that whenever there's a crisis situation, I never react on my first impulse. I always count to 10, think about it before I do or say anything, because a lot of times you then get a little bit different slant, because as Jenny said, you know, what's a crisis to somebody else may not be a crisis to you, and you have to reach out and empathize with the crisis for them. So I'm not going to take up a lot of time because I think we covered a lot of really good stuff. One of my favorite things, though, that sometimes illuminates crisis, because a lot of times we get in crisis when we get in situations where people disagree with us. Is that right? So my favorite thing to say is, you know, I'd love to agree with you, but then we both be wrong. And that makes them laugh, right? And that really, you know, diffuses a lot of situations. So I'll turn it over to whoever. Like I said, Damon, Jenny, everyone, Lisa, Clint, great answers. You know, I would just be repeating a lot of things you said. But my number one thing is I always count to 10 really slowly before I do anything. It lets me clear my head, look at the other side, and then formulate my action. That's it, guys.
I would love to, I'm going to steal that. I would love to agree with you, but we both be wrong. I'm not going to borrow it, Mark. I'm stealing it. I'm just going to be real front and honest with you.
I stole it from somebody else. I didn't make that up. It's a good one.
It's a great one. What do they say when I'm part of the speaking world? They say the first time you go, my friend Mark Sher once said, right? And then you say, and then the second time I heard it once said, the second time you use it, and then
exactly.
you go, as I've always said, right? It's how you use it. It's how you use that. That's awesome.
You got it.
Thanks, Mark.
Glad I could contribute, Jay.
That's awesome. Let's go to Joey Natale. I want to call you Natale so bad because
it's okay.
I want to do the Italian part. I want to do Joey Natale. I want to do the whole thing, right? I'm going to go Joey Natale.
I'll give you permission. It's totally cool.
I just want to do that. And I am going to get back with you, and we'll calendar up.
Yeah, man.
So I
totally
have to do that. So, Joey, tell us what you do, and then in crisis, what is your go-to system?
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Joey Natale, and I'm a holistic confidence coach. Not sure how to ask for a raise or ask that girl out or just have an icebreaker at a networking event? Come to me. I can help you with your social skills, self-esteem, and your confidence to help your relationships, professional and personal. I got you. So how do I deal with crisis? Well, in past, I would have a pity party. And I would sometimes. I would usually fall into the victim category. And I'd have to say that's taken a long time journey to get out of that as an automatic response. But one thing I do is I breathe, which is definitely do. But more importantly, I get clarity. I get clarity on the severity of how deep or how terrible this situation is. Either it's happening externally or internally or the type of relationship. And once I figure out the severity, and maybe calm down a little bit after breathing, I take action, essentially. You know, one thing I have to really catch myself is what type of questions am I asking myself? Why is this happening to me? Why now? I don't want to spend that. Why do I have to spend that on this? You know, everything's going good and all of a sudden, blah, blah, blah happened. Well, if only she would just stop doing, if only he would just, you know, because the quality of your life is the quality of questions you ask yourself. So rather than asking, why me? Why this? A better question would be like, what am I going to do about it? What is the one thing I can do right now to make this situation better? Or what is the one thing I can stop doing to make this situation better? Stealing your quote from the speakers, I can't remember who said this, but when bad times come, they don't come to stay, they come to pass. And just like bad storms, every storm we weather, we become a stronger, greater version, one step closer to our greater version. And that's always true. There's always opportunities in crisis. It's just a matter of, can you step back and get your head out of the crisis to really see the opportunities? And you may not see it the first day, but it's always there. And you can always be grateful for that.
I love that. That's beautiful. Boy, you've got this little philosophical, poetic part of you that is starting to come out. We didn't see that the first week you were with us, but now we're starting to see the real Joey. So that's pretty cool. Hey, listen, I know we're going to have extra time here, so we're going to do something fun when we get through everybody, and we're going to call it open forum, and it's something brand new. I will explain it just so that the guests can have fun, so that we'll close off the show with an open forum, which I think will be kind of neat. All right, so we've got 2 people left. So let's let's bounce over to Sarah Elliot. And Sarah, you and I had this conversation. We'll finish with Adam, and then we'll go to open forum. Sarah, you tell us what you do, of course, but then, you and I had this conversation, had a great conversation, by the way. It was a lot of fun. And in crisis, right? When you're in crisis, and you kind of been in a little bit of a one, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Right? You've been in a little bit of crisis with Stephen and everything in the hospital and everything. That's a little bit of a crisis, right?
It's terrifying, yeah.
Yeah. So you still keep your smile and your eyes are bright and everything. So tell us what you do, and then tell us what's your go-to in crisis when it comes to your systems.
So I'm actually really glad that this is being recorded, because I'm taking notes from all of you. I'm going to go watch this like 5 more times and use your strategies, because, as we grow as people and mature into our full adulthood, and I think there's lots and lots of stages of adulthood. I mean, you have an early adulthood, and then you're, after you have children, you're a different person. And then as your children grow up, you're a different person. And there's lots of stages. So as I'm moving through and gaining knowledge from real adults like all of you, it helps a lot, because previously, and it depends on, I guess, the type of crisis. So if it's a huge, like somebody close to me is knocking on death's door, or, we've had a big loss, or we've had, and this is probably not good, really, but I have a tendency to shut emotion off completely and just deal in the moment as it happens, which means I become very placid and I don't cry, I don't whatever. And I think it's a defense mechanism. I don't think it's necessarily very healthy. But breathing is really good. I should do that. And when it's a longer term, like if I'm having interpersonal conflict with somebody that we're arguing, and then we separate from each other and we come back and we're still not seeing eye to eye, a lot of the times in that case, I will talk to either my husband or my best friend and say, okay, here's what I think of the situation, and you know me, what am I missing? Like what could I be doing differently that I'm not doing right now? Because I can't see it. So a lot of the times I will seek outside advice to open my eyes to what's going on in the moment. I should be meditating on it. So you guys are all full of really good advice, because I think I could probably handle a crisis better, honestly.
It is a defense mechanism, by the way.
It is.
It is. It's a defense mechanism for us to shut down our emotions and then just try to go, okay, I can't feel this right now. I'm just going to live what I can live in the moment, right? By the way, that's not necessarily unhealthy, because
that's good.
No, it's not. And I'm just saying that from my own psychological professional background. The reason why is actually okay is because if you let those emotions go, you may not be able to make any decisions.
Right. And that, I think, is why I do it, is that, like, when I'm handling, especially when I'm handling crisis for somebody else, or I'm the responsible party, you have to be able to make logical, rational decisions,
Right.
and not based off of fear or anxiety or any of these other things. So, it's a long fought for skill.
Yeah, you have to shut down you have to shut down your right brain.
Right.
Right. And sometimes you do have to just shut it down, because that's the only way you can survive it. And so you have to do that. And then you let the emotion leak back in, because then I imagine this is you've logically ran through the process, and then the crisis is slowly coming over, and then all of a sudden those emotions start to release.
Right. Especially when, so for recently, I've dealt with things at a very logical level. And then when I leave the situation and I have a moment to myself, or I'm telling somebody about it, that's when the waterworks start. And that's when the emotion comes out, because I'm relaying the story then. And then it's all of that bubbles up, and it's even sometimes surprising. I'll be on the phone with my best friend last week, and I just sort of lost it. And I was surprised that was my reaction in that moment, hours and hours later, after this had happened, so.
Yeah, I think you're pretty darn normal.
Oh, good.
And I think your advice is sound. I don't think there's anything. I think it was great. I think
good. Well, I'm going to take lessons from all of you guys too, because I think that, breathing and coming to understanding and listening are things that I could definitely improve on. I get pretty set in my way, and I don't listen as well as I could. So
that's awesome. Good for you. Great job.
No, this is what I know. We're gonna do it this way. Much to the doctors at Duke Raleigh's dismay this last week.
Well, at least there's the authenticity that Lisa talked about early on, right? Let's go to Adam Bricker. Adam, hey brother. So Adam, tell people what you do, and then tell them, when in crisis, what is your go-to system?
Thanks, Jay. Pleasure to be here. Adam Bricker from Florida, but currently camped out in Canada. I want to give a shout out to Stephen. Hey, Stephen, I know you're watching. And Sarah, no, you're totally not normal. You're extraordinary. Keep it up. Really proud of you. Thanks for coming to me for crisis. I'm a philosopher, so I help people enjoy their human experience. Professionally, I do that in marketing. So I have a philosophy that every single one of your prospects has a smartphone, and I teach you how to use it to get more clients. My numbers are down below in the content. Crisis. First off, I'm a rhino. Okay, so I go through life with a 2-inch thick skin, and I try not to let anything bother me too much. And I'm very, very calm when crisis starts to hit. I'm not like Lisa, and I admire that you can adjust your perspectives very easily. I can't. So I've surrounded myself with other animals, lions, tigers, bears, who I can call when I'm in crisis and they're not, because it's not their crisis. 90% of the time, I'm not asking them to be in the crisis with me. So they hold that position. They hold that rock solid position that I can bounce off of, and they got my back and I have theirs. So I couple that with my philosophy in life that everything always works out for me. Everything always works out for me. So when I'm in crisis, I know I'm going to get through it. I don't know how, but I have a team around me that can help me do it. Staying calm is really important, because as a rhino, I could trample people. And some of the things that you guys mentioned on a call today, as far as crisis with things with my wife, I don't want to trample my wife. I don't usually consider argument with my wife a crisis. That's having a wife. It's part of the territory. Crisis in business. You want to deal with it, cleanly, clearly, but I always like to bring somebody else in, because I'm not under the illusion that the way I see the world is the way other people see the world. As a matter of fact, I know the way I see the world is not the way it is. It's just my perspective of the world. Okay. So when I engage my team, I really am open-minded to hear their perspectives. I don't have to be right. I just know that's my opinion at the moment. For those of you who were used to seeing me in 2021, and then I went away for a while, I was dealing with a crisis. Okay. I just got back from a 40-day spiritual journey. So those of you who meditate, I took it to an extreme level. And I did something I called take two. So my background, I'm radio and television. I'm a director. If you do something on the TV show and it's not exactly the way you want it, it's cut, take two. COVID wrecked my plans, plain and simple. I had a whole structure set up and COVID destroyed my plans, eliminated some people from my life, unfortunately, and just did some other things that were really unpleasant. I went back 2 years and did the same 8-city trip that I did before, take two. So I dealt with that crisis. I'm rejuvenated, I'm refreshed, and I used the advice, the teamwork, the camaraderie of my friends, family, and my comrades to get through it.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I mean, I would say you did have a little crisis. Also, you know, being in Canada and everything going on and the whole thing. And I would say there's a lot of crisis. And I do admire and respect your, you know, we're both positive guys. And so I love that, you know, we have this positive mindset that, you know, there's always hope. You know, I just told this one of my coaching clients this morning, you know, at the end of the day, I get it. Hope's not a strategy, but you have to have it in order to move on to the next day.
Hope isn't strategy, but faith is.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I get it. Totally get it. Thank you, Adam. Okay, here's open forum. You ready? We have never done open forum. So this is open forum. And I want to stay to the theme of crisis. How do you lead others in crisis? How do you lead others in crisis? And I'm going to, whoever wants to just, you open up your microphone and you just start. Whoever wants to do, go, and I will, if two of you go at the same time, I'll go you first, then you. So who wants to go? How do you lead in crisis? Go ahead, Sarah.
That's when I actually can listen.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when I'm in crisis, it's hard for me to listen to other people. But if somebody else is having an issue, I'm all ears. Like, I just tell me everything. I'm never telling anybody. Just tell it. Just spill it all.
Okay, got it. So
I agree with Sarah there, because one of the things that that I'm really good at in those situations when others are in crisis is empathizing to as much as I can. And because sometimes people just want to bitch, you know, they just want to tell you what's wrong with them. They don't necessarily need you to fix it. Right.
They usually don't want advice.
Right. They usually don't want advice. So actually I started, and this started a few years ago, when anybody comes to me and they're saying they have a bad day. I'm like, okay, so one thing real quick, are you looking for advice or do you just want an ear? Right. And I ask people that all the time. Like, if you want advice, I'll give you it if I have it. But if you just want an ear, I'm here for it, brother. I'm here for it. So I try to be cognizant and ask that question every time before. Obviously, there's times where I forget, but most of the times I'm like, hey, let me just ask one quick question. And so, you know, it's leading by empathizing, I think, is a big deal.
Yeah, good. Who else wants to go? I always tell people, don't be a Pat. Don't be a Pat. Preach, advise, or teach. Right? Don't be a Pat. Yeah.
Right.
I was going to say what Clint said, because it's always, and I always ask for permission to whatever it is. Can I ask you a question? You know, can I give you some feedback? Like, you know, where are you? Because if they're, you know, a lot of times in crisis, we're not in a space to receive anything. You know, people retain very little when you talk to them anyway. So in crisis, it's even less.
Right.
And so, you know, there's a reason that in healthcare, we recommend that you always have a support person there to take notes. There's a reason that, you know, when you're going to a stressful, you know, maybe it's a parent-teacher conference, or maybe it's an interview or whatever, that you know, figure out a way to reduce that level of feeling as though it's a crisis, or you know, reduce that adrenaline load so that you can actually listen and retain. And I think that by asking for permission from the other parties involved, you're not only showing that empathy, that compassion, you're showing them that they have the power and the control, because most of the time when we're in crisis, we feel like things are out of control.
So true.
And so showing them and leading that way of saying, look, you know, you take the reins here. I'm happy to do what it is that you need. Just you have to give me a little guidance.
Good. That's really good. Yeah. Who else was going there? So there you, Joey, go ahead.
To echo some of what everyone said, holding space and being very present. Essentially, just being with them and their crisis. If, like I said, if they just want to vent, yeah, just, you know, let it out. If they are looking, or they're more open-minded to it, depending on if you know them or not, you know, showing how much control they have in the situation, trying or doing my best to show them, to empower them in the situation, and giving them clarity of like, you know, life goes on. This isn't going to kill you, ideally, or you're going to make it through it.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
You know, once we have our pity party, or just get clear and just like vent all you want, then what are we going to do next, type of thing.
Good.
You know, to add to that, Joey, you know, I think somebody said it earlier. I think it was Adam. Having a pity party is okay for a few minutes. You just have to let that shit go. You know, after a while, you give yourself a set amount of time, and you're like, okay, I got 5 minutes, and I can feel bad about it. I can bitch, I can cry, I can moan, but after that, I got to get to work. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, so I agree 100%.
I was watching.
I also think it's important to identify one small, tiny little thing you can do. Okay, one small thing. You know, it's like we just sold our house and we moved into a rent house and we're building a house. And my kids came home and they're like, "Oh my God, look at all these boxes in our room. We have to unpack all this." And I went into my youngest son and I said, "You see that shirt right there? Just pick up that one shirt and put it on a hanger. Okay? And then when you do that, do the next shirt. Just do 2 shirts. Okay, now do 4 shirts." You see, and it's, you know, it's like, if it's a phone call you need to make, if it's a quick text you need to send, if it's something as simple as sit down and just make out a list of 3 things you're going to do today, one thing. You know, we have a tendency to think we have to have these big grandiose plans. Sometimes it's just one thing. Make one move, even if that move is just get out of bed. You know, so I think simplify it down to the lowest common denominator and do that one thing.
I love simplification. I really do. Lisa, you were going to say something.
Yeah, everything everybody has said is spot on, absolutely perfect. And there's something that's really funny that happens in my universe when people come to me in crisis, and really good with this, is that I am the calm, serene one. If you can believe that. This is the space, and a match and mirror where they're at. Never, ever make them wrong. Never make them wrong. And listen. Simply listen and be there. And when they're ready to receive, and it's just a knowingness on just trusting your own instincts, because we all have that ESP that they said was extra sense. It's really your extraordinary sense. It's that thing that makes you extraordinarily you, and all of you have it because you're here. You can't not have it. And just being there, matching them breath for breath, because they'll actually slow down and breathe a little bit more as you're breathing with them, and being that space. I'm going to say Natale forever because it just sounds really cool. Joey and Natale, how he said where he's holds space and he's present. Holy smokes. And then there comes the time when, does something need to be done about it? Do they just need to vent? Being right there in the moment is, for me, that's what I do. The first biggest thing.
And at the same time, if you're helping somebody, or contrary, I guess the other side of that, and the thing that drives me nuts when people do it is really my point, is that if I'm going to somebody with a crisis and with a like, oh my God, this is happening right now, and they go, well, that sucks, but here's what I'm doing, and totally like derail and just start talking about their totally fine day or some other, like, I'm like, what? But I just told you like this big, huge thing, and either you weren't listening or you don't care. Like,
It's where that empathy comes in.
Or
Right.
those
I also
people,
think
you
it's
know.
a way people try to relate and they don't always know how to relate because stress makes them uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
Other people's emotions make them uncomfortable because they haven't been taught how to deal with emotions. So like saying, I think that it's totally appropriate in those situations to be like, hey, can we pause for a second? I want to make sure you understood that I'm reaching out to you because I need support right now. And feeling empowered to speak up for yourself, which is another thing that we're not, taught to do in general. I think that there's like so many layers to it. And again, recognizing that at the root of everything, the communication is 10% about you and 90% about the other person. It's about how they're going to receive it. So, maybe that's not the person you call when you're in a crisis anymore. Like maybe that's the lesson learned, and be like, you know what? Check that one off the list. They don't, I'm going to go find somebody to replace them. And in the meantime, like I'm going to replace that adrenaline with some dopamine, and I'm going to go do like a dance party in my kitchen to distract myself, to kind of like pull myself out of that,
Well, I want to add to that and say something that Joey will appreciate. If somebody's having a bad day and they would just want to have a conversation and it's a nice day outside, go outside, get them in some sunlight, take your shoes off, do a little bit of grounding, right? Get to feeling better about yourself, because like sunlight and breath will do so many wonders for you, and doing them at the same time and just having a conversation with a confidant or a friend will all three of those things combined will do well. But the sunlight and the grounding, I've just started learning this over the last 6 months since I've been friends with Mitch, Joey. And there's a lot of things into that. It's a lot of things to be said to that.
Powerful stuff.
I want to bring in Adam Bricker. Adam, you were going to say something, so go ahead, Adam. I want to bring it on.
Yeah, when people call me for crisis, it usually involves action. Something happened in their life. They can't live up to responsibility of picking up the kids at school. Maybe they need extra ammunition. Maybe, I have to go someplace. Maybe they're in a car accident. So we're talking like immediate action and rounding up the troops. Hey, Adam, I got time to call one person before this goes down. Help me out. You guys, please get this one, and this one. And so going into action immediately to take care of that crisis and dissolve it is what I usually see myself doing.
Mark, I would love to hear your thought process on leading in crisis, because I have a feeling that you have a very calming style to yourself.
So again, a lot of great answers. I think that, Clint, you hit on something. The sun and being outside is a huge thing. One of the things that I used to travel a lot to Asia, maybe once a month, 12 to 14-hour time zone differences. And the trick that I learned to adjust to time zones is going out in the sun, because your body knows when it hits the sun when it's supposed to go to sleep. So it's kind of interesting, and it relates a lot to what you said. And taking the shoes off, there's a whole theory of magnetism that, as we evolved over the ages and we started putting shoes on our feet and barriers, we weren't connected to the magnetism of the earth. So love all that. But how do I lead in crisis?
Elevating our houses.
Yeah. How do I lead in crisis? I just try to ask the person what's really bothering them and try and let them figure out, is it a crisis or is it, a little bump in the road? And if it's a bump in the road, obviously we laugh. Maybe if I'm with them, have a cocktail and make it go away. But if it's a real crisis, obviously we want to solve it in the best way we can. And getting people to realize that, when you're dealing with women in crisis, not picking on the women, a lot of times the waterworks turn on, and when you're crying, it's hard to think logically. So, do whatever you can to get them to stop crying. And, I've been in situations with people that were males and, they were hyperventilating, and we're talking about breathing's important. So nothing really unique. I'm just, try to diffuse it as much as I can to get them to think logically, slow down, and do what I do, which is count to 10 or take 10 deep breaths. And sometimes it changes their perspective. But I have a question.
Sure.
And a lot of people have been in a crisis the last couple of days that have iPhones. And I thought someone came up with a great answer last night on a TV show I was watching. They have a new emoji on the iPhone of, I can't say a man, but an emoji that looks like it's a man, but it could not be a man and is pregnant. Anyone seen that?
Yeah, the beer belly emoji, right?
Well, yeah, but they brought it out as the
Yeah.
pregnancy emoji, right? And my question was to some people, some of my friends, they go, "Oh, it's kind of cool." I go, "How many pregnant men do you know?" And they got kind of quiet. And then you obviously saw what I saw last night. A TV personality came out and said, "It's not a pregnancy emoji, it's a beer belly emoji."
Right.
And then they started showing pictures of people on the beach with beer bellies and go, all these people with these 6-pack abs, they worked really hard, but so did that person. You know what it took them to get a belly like that?
It takes a lot of beer to make a belly like that, you know?
That made me laugh. And it was
That's a
just,
lot more
you know,
fun though.
It was. But
That's
there really were people who were in crisis over that emoji.
Yeah.
And this TV personality got a bunch of people to laugh, and I thought it was great. So it just kind of goes along with what we're saying. So,
Thank
So
you,
Mark,
Mark.
if you're ever around a woman who has the waterworks going and all of that, and for me, if I'm close enough to a friend, and it doesn't even have, I mean, not romantic, but just close enough that we
Hug.
have ever hugged in the past.
yeah.
Right? If I have the waterworks
100%.
going, a big bear hug usually helps a lot. Like, just especially from somebody larger than me, to just be wrapped up and just, I mean, it's
Very consoling and calming.
hugely relieving.
Agree 100% for sure. And there's Jay.
No, it's
Willing
just
to do the bear hug, no doubt.
She knows I stand about 6'5", and when I hug you,
Right.
when I hug you, you're hugged. I mean,
Right.
So seeing Jay in this setting, you have zero idea how larger than life he actually is. Until
I
you
know.
see
I
him
look
in
up at
person,
him, I go,
you're
"Hi,
like,
Jay."
"Oh, holy moly!" Yeah.
And the cowboy hat just makes him taller
Yes.
when he's in
Right.
his when he's in his
the cowboy
Stetson.
hat.
about 6'9" with the cowboy hat on for sure. Well, Sarah, we about exhausted it here. I'm going to let you close us out, but before we do, I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to host this week. I am very, very grateful. All of the guests that were here this week, Joey, Mark, Adam, Clint, Damon, Ginny, Lisa, you guys were absolutely fabulous as always. And I am so grateful to be considered a part of your colleagues and a part of your group. So thank you for allowing me to do this. And Sarah, I will let you close it off.
Thank you, Jay, for guiding us along. I appreciate it so much. And we hope to have Stephen back next week. And, we'll see. It'll take him a while to be able to breathe fully again. So, we'll see. But he is getting better every day. So yay. And I appreciate all of your really considerate comments throughout this hour. I look forward to this every week, whether I'm part of the panel or whether I'm watching. So like if I'm not on screen, I'm just right behind the screen watching Stephen and giving him facial cues and passing him notes because I'm watching the whole thing. But it's the highlight of my week because I get to hear and see from all of you, and it's amazing. And I appreciate that even though we're not in the same place physically, like mentally, we can all come together for an hour and have this awesome conversation. So I appreciate your attention and your time. I know that it's a whole hour out of a Tuesday. So I'm just grateful to each of you for joining us in it.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. I hope you guys have a fabulous week. We will see you next week. And thank you.
Ciao,
Take care.
everybody.